So tell us a little bit about your home.
Well, I am a proud ambassador of a country which has been variously described as one of the most beautiful islands in the world. We have, for example, still the only vibrant population of indigenous people in the Eastern Caribbean. We are the most watered of the Eastern Caribbean islands. We have 365 rivers. We have the highest rainfall. We have the highest mountains. We are a lush piece of real estate. In fact, when the King James Version of the Bible was being translated, I think his name was James Whitfield. Don't quote me on this, on the name. But he was responsible for translating Genesis. And he used his experience in the Caribbean. I think he visited at least 2 islands, Puerto Rico and Dominica, to frame his description of Eden.
Wow.
And the historians who have written about this say that the entries he made in his diary about Dominica are mimicked, captured to some extent, in his description of Eden in Genesis. That is my country.
So you're very proud of your country. So you have Eden. I also hear you have the Fountain of Youth there.
But that's just it. We also, I think, after Canada, we have one of the most vaunted reputations in terms of longevity. You know, we have per population, you know, we have the highest number of centenarians.
Wow.
But we consider ourselves an island of the future. And recently we have done quite a bit of work, at least preliminary work, on geothermal energy. So in time we are likely to be not just self-sufficient in energy, but we're likely to be an energy exporter.
You mentioned a very important word, future. Your passion is education. And so in order to get to a brighter future, obviously, we need to be educating our children. I want to read a statistic to you that I found during my research. Some 75 million children around the world do not have access to basic education. More than half of them are girls. Why is this still the case?
I think fundamentally we're talking policy and poverty. Many families in many parts of the world who are unable to send their children to school, number one. Number two, send their children to good schools. And in some situations, there is a reluctance to send the girls to school. So particularly within the framework of the United Nations Basic Education Program and the Millennium Development Goals, a concerted effort has been made since 2000 to reverse that, to reverse poverty, to reverse poor teaching, to reverse girls' education, and to reverse mortality, particularly at childhood. That type of intervention has resulted in a significant reduction in terms of girls not being in school, a significant increase in the enrollment at basic education. So in terms of the future, that has to continue.
So strategically, who do we start with to improve the system?
That's why we have government. When all else fails, government must be there. It is a sacred obligation, and for the Caribbean, a sacred expectation. So I think the state, parents, society at large, one can add, and I think one should add, the private sector. Because I think it is a little troublesome if you have a situation where your private sector is not engaged in the preparation of your students, but at the same time, at the end of the road, they complain that the students are inadequately prepared. So the paradigm, I think, is changing. We're talking about partnerships. We're talking about a strong partnership where civil society, parents, the state, and certainly the private sector are all engaged in this effort.
And you mentioned partnerships. What about the church and the faith community? How can they partner with these other organizations to help improve education?
Well, to some extent, I think they have actually been engaged. If you look at a country like Dominica, historically, the churches were the first entities to step up the plate after slavery and insist that, number one, reading is important and schools are important. The church is important, I think, for another reason. If we want to talk about strong societies, we need not just strong academic input, but we need a strong ethical frame. We also need a strong cultural frame as well. So the church has, as far as I'm concerned, a powerful role. It has had in the Caribbean. I suspect it has in many settings, and it should continue to do that and probably become even more efficient in the future.